Chapter 2. Iqbal appeared one morning just as summer was about to begin. The sun was high and warm, and its long beams of light caught the eddying dust in the workroom. Two beams crossed right in the middle of my carpet, accentuating the bright colors, and I imagined they were swords clashing in a mortal duel. One was the sword of the good hero, the other was of an evil villain. My hands, as they made knots, could give the hero sword a slight advantage, moving the other sword away for a brief second. But the implacable evil sword returned. One of the boys, Kareem, said that he had been to the cinema twice, and that the movies told stories of good and evil. After great tribulation, the hero always triumphed. Then he put on a beautiful suit of colored silk and asked for the hand of his favorite maiden. The father couldn't refuse. No, he was happy because the hero had risked his life. Good had defeated evil. Kareem, who was almost 17, and whose fingers had grown too thick and awkward to make the thin, delicate knots of the carpets, had become sort of an overseer to us children. It was probably true that he had been to the movies, even if such luck seemed incredible to us, because some evenings, when he was in a good mood, Kareem told us the movie stories with all their details, and he couldn't have invented them. He didn't have enough imagination. They were long, complicated films. It took him 2 months to tell the story of the first one. When we reached the end, we couldn't remember the beginning, and we asked him to start all over. I thought I'd like to go to the cinema someday. My mother and father had never been, nor my brothers and sisters. They were too poor. The cinema was a luxury for city folks, like television. The master and mistress had a television, sometimes at night when we were trying to fall asleep. We could hear those strange voices in Hussein Khan's living room and see the bright colored lights. The master and mistress had a television. Sometimes at night, when we were trying to fall asleep, we could hear those strange voices in Hussein Khan's living room and see the colored lights through the rush matting at the window. Kareem, always Kareem, bragged that once he had sneaked up to one of the windows and had seen almost 5 minutes of a cricket game. "What's cricket?" I asked. "Shut up, stupid," he answered. If you want my opinion, though, it was a big lie. It's true that Kareem did everything the master wanted and that he supervised us, because otherwise he would have had nowhere to go and nothing to eat, but he would never have had the courage to peek into the master's windows. It was big trouble for anyone to go near the house. Suddenly, I realized that I had to get back to work. My mind had wandered. Just in time, I managed to recapture a thread I was about to lose. Then the sunbeams were blocked, and the two swords of light stopped fighting. We all turned around to see the master standing in the doorway. His big body filled it. He was dressed for traveling, with a long coat that almost reached his feet and boots covered with red dust. In his left hand he held a sack, and his right hand held the arm of a boy in an iron grip. The boy was thin and dark and not very tall. He looked about 2 years older than me. My first impression was that he was handsome. Then I thought, no, he isn't really good looking. But he had such eyes. They were sweet and deep, and they weren't afraid. He was standing at the threshold of the workroom with Hussein Khan's enormous hand gripping his arm, and we were all looking at him. The 14 of us child slaves plus Kareem, all observing another slave. He was one of the many who had come and gone over the years, but we felt that somehow this new boy was different. He looked around at us, one by one. He was sad, of course, like anyone who has been away from home for a long time, like anyone who was little more than a slave, like anyone who can't imagine what will become of him. But I'm telling you this, he wasn't afraid. Hussein Khan looked at us and growled, "What do you think you're looking at? Get back to work." We bent to our looms, but then we quickly peeked over our shoulders. Hussein brought the new boy over to an empty loom in the row next to mine, pulled out a rusty shackle, and locked it on the boy's right ankle. "This will be your place. Here's where you work," he said. "And if you work well, I know." The boy responded. Hussein took the usual slate, already covered with lines. "This is your debt," he began, "and every evening I know," said the new boy. "All right then," said Hussein. "All right, Mr. Know-it-all. Your old master told me that you're stubborn and proud. He also told me, however, that nobody knows how to work like you when you want to. We'll see. We'll see." Hussein headed toward the door. Once there, he stopped and pointed his fat finger toward Kareem. "And you, keep an eye on him." Kareem nodded uncertainly. The new boy sat at his loom and began to work. We watched him in silence, our mouths open. Nobody was as fast and skillful as he. Nobody knew how to tighten the knots with such precision and delicacy. His fingers flew, even though the pattern Hussein had assigned him was one of the most difficult. One thing was for certain. He wasn't chained because he was a numbskull. Oh no. It was for some other reason. "What's your name?" asked Kareem, trying to make his voice sound tough. "Iqbal," he answered. "Iqbal Masai."